Are you ready to take your business to the next level? Every day there are countless books and articles that are published offering the key on how to make your business a success. It's easy to feel overwhelmed trying to keep up and run your business. That's why Deb Creer created the Business Power Hour. Keep up on the latest trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. Let the Business Power Hour do the heavy work for you.
Good morning, good morning. I am Deb Creer, and I am passionate about giving professionals the tools that they need to make themselves and their businesses as successful as possible. You know, we started the program, I thought, oh my gosh, COVID hair is just... But you know what? We all have COVID hair right now. And it was funny. I was interviewing a gentleman who had buzz cut his hair. And I thought, that really was easier. But we're all in the same boat. And more importantly, we're all in the same boat as business professionals. Things took a change several months ago that shifted all of our worlds throughout the world. We have no idea what's going to happen, and all sorts of things. But we don't know how to continue doing business and how to keep working with great employees and how to motivate employees. And if we're back in the offices, we still have those situations. How do we motivate employees? How do we get good employees? So joining me today is Beth Miller, who's going to talk about that. So welcome, Beth.
Well, thank you, Deb. I've really been looking forward to having a conversation with you today, especially in these times where there are a lot of challenges that leaders are facing.
Right. Well, let me tell people just a little bit about you, and then we'll jump into this because I have a feeling this is going to be one of those where we could go on forever. So with over 20 years of experience as an entrepreneur, executive coach, and talent advisor, Beth Miller works with leaders who know that an organization's success requires the right people in the right seat at the right time. Through workshops, published articles, speaking engagements, and her book, Are You Talent Obsessed?, she shares her insights on hiring the best people, leading and developing them to their full potential, and creating succession plans for sustained growth in the future. As an entrepreneur, a coach, and Vistage Chair Emeritus, she has many stories of both success and failure and the lessons learned from them. Beth is a graduate of Babson College and Harvard Business School's OPM program. So again, Beth, welcome.
Well, thank you, Deb.
Well, we were talking, we're both in Atlanta and have not met each other. So once we're able to go and meet each other in person, we'll remedy that. But let's go back a bit in the Wayback Machine and tell us how it is that you discovered that this is your passion in life.
Oh gosh, wow. So I actually started in finance many years ago.
Okay.
Graduated from Babson with a degree in finance.
And
one of the things I realized pretty quickly was I was good at it, but I wasn't passionate about it.
Okay.
And I was working for a Fortune 500 company at the time, Digital Equipment Corporation, which is no longer. And I had the opportunity to go into sales. They were doing an internal sales development program, which is how I got to Atlanta, Georgia. Kind of fast forward, my husband, he started an accounting temporary services firm. I joined him to start a consulting technology practice. We got the company up to an Inc. 500 and sold the accounting off, and then continued to build the consulting company, and then sold it back in 2002. We had gotten to the point where personally my dad had passed away. My mom was up in the Northeast, and I just needed time with her, and just didn't have the energy around the company. And one of the things that I learned from that was that we didn't have a good succession plan. We hadn't really built a really good management team. So being able to step away for a month was It's really impossible.
Mm-hmm.
So then I was without a job. I got bored very quickly.
Mm-hmm.
There wasn't enough volunteer work to do.
Right.
And I found Vistage,
Mm.
which is, it's an international organization.
Mm-hmm.
It brings business owners and CEOs together
Okay.
on a monthly basis.
Mm-hmm.
And chairs like myself would facilitate the meetings
Mm-hmm.
as well as coach
Okay.
individually. That was back in 2005.
Mm-hmm.
My eyes just lit up. All of a sudden I realized this is what I was meant to do.
Mm-hmm.
I had all the wounds and battle scars of an entrepreneur.
Mm-hmm.
And now I could help other business owners avoid some of those mistakes that I made. And once I did that, once I started Vistage, I set up my own company, Executive Velocity.
Mm.
I was doing a coaching and training,
Mm-hmm.
talent management advisory work for those small to mid-sized companies,
Mm-hmm.
as well as working for Vistage.
Mm.
I had that kind of parallel path for a
Mm-hmm.
while.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got very busy, and I transitioned my groups over to another chair.
Mm.
So the last group I transitioned was earlier last year, 2019.
Mm-hmm.
So I've been really focused on working with business owners, but not through the Vistage platform.
Mm-hmm.
And my work is really helping companies hire great people, develop leaders and future leaders, and succession planning.
Interesting. And I enjoyed reading your book, which is, again, Are You Talent Obsessed? Show it. Have to be Vanna. Yay! It's a very quick read. And, it was interesting because I only have one person who works for me now. That's my producer. She is a virtual assistant, but we've all had or have been probably employees. And I always look at things too as, could this work for volunteer organizations? Sure, most definitely could. So it's a great resource and a very quick read. It's very fast. But, I loved how, one of the things it talked about was the fact that you have to be that all good and powerful leader. I was trying to figure out the Wizard of Oz and that just got lost in my head. But it's not that you go to work, you have employees, they do the work and you go home. Yeah. That works, obviously, but it doesn't work to its best potential. We all know that when you have to replace an employee, there is a cost associated with that. Now, sometimes it's worth it because you're like, oh, didn't need that person, didn't want that person. But, and it's not just a monetary cost, depending on, what's going on. Sometimes there's morale issues. There's all sorts of things that go with it. And so, of course, the important thing is to, as we said in your bio, find the right people and put them in the right positions. And so tell us really kind of how you developed that.
Yeah. So what I found working with small to mid-sized companies is that managers and leaders were never trained on how to properly interview and assess prospective employees. And there might be like one manager who's really good at it. But part of the issue was there's no consistency across the organization on how you screen employees, how do you interview them, do you use an assessment to try and
did you have to take a test?
No, wait, it's not a test, it's an assessment.
I always felt like they were tests and I was going to be graded.
No pass fail in these things. The whole point is to take some bias out of the process.
Right.
They didn't know how to do a behavioral interview process. So those were the things that I bring to organizations is training, understanding their core competencies, and being really consistent within the interviewing process around those core competencies. So building behavioral interview questions that are around conflict management, for instance. And understanding what a good question is, or a good answer is, versus that answer. So that when you come together as a group to make a hiring decision, you're all working with the same data and information. Yeah.
Right.
So
you know, and it's interesting. I was thinking about the last time that I worked in corporate America and went through that process. I don't even remember if the person I reported to interviewed me. You know, and so obviously if she did, it wasn't that memorable.
Right.
She was a great person. I mean, you know, that, and I enjoyed working for her, but yeah, I don't remember that she was part of the process. You know, and I think that is a big part of this is when you have a big enough company where you have multiple levels, things just aren't standardized. Sometimes it's only HR. Sometimes it's HR and a hiring manager. Sometimes it's a peer review. And some of that just varies department by department. You know, and that's very confusing to the potential employees. You know, and as you said, we don't get people in the right places. You know, I've talked to many people who they say, oh my gosh, I love this company, but I don't like what I do. You know,
or don't like your manager.
Right. Yeah. Or the people you're working with, you know, some things like that. And so, you know, you'd have a potential employee, you know, in that person who could do great things, but is going to do just enough, you know, maybe not even just enough. Or they, you know, they might have a good enough work ethic that they're going to, you know, they're going to do a really good job. But, you know, they just aren't going to hit that ultimate because they're not doing what they should be doing for the people they should be doing it with.
Right. That's all around leaders that help to develop their employees to their full potential.
Right.
And a lot of leaders got to be leaders because they were subject matter experts in something, and they were tapped to then take on a leadership position
with zero training.
Zero training. Yeah, I'm working with a client right now in Florida, and they've been around for quite some time, and their leadership, for the most part, has grown up in the organization. And so the CEO realized that they really need to create some leadership training for individuals, both from a standpoint of existing leaders and then those high potentials that were coming up.
Right.
So I helped design a 10-module leadership certification program for them. And now we're in the process of, I am then training a trainer to deliver the next round. So it's helpful because I don't want to be the trainer for the rest of my life.
Right.
I want to provide them with the tool and the knowledge, and then train that individual so they can then deliver. Yeah.
Right. Well, and there are times, I'm sure, in that process where you figure out, ooh, that person shouldn't be the manager.
Yeah.
And you know what? If you're seeing that, they're feeling it. So it's, you know, they probably wouldn't be adverse to somebody there saying, why don't we switch things up a bit? You know, and it is about having you know, we talk about having the right employees in the right place. It's about having the right leaders in the right place too. And it was funny when you were, you know, when we were talking about you had your job and at the financial company or at DEC, and it wasn't your passion. I wonder how many times that happens, and it's simply because we didn't have good leaders who nurtured us into having that passion. And maybe it means changing roles. Maybe it means, learning new skills, new things like that. But yeah, it's not our passion because it wasn't nurtured.
It wasn't nurtured and nobody asked.
Right.
So, oftentimes I'll be working with leaders, and one of the things I really encourage them to do is to have those regular one-to-one coaching conversations with their employees. And many of them nowadays have a routine of doing that.
Right.
I recommend at least once a month. There are some
not the once a year annual reviews, folks.
And I also recommend that they set aside one or two of those to have a career conversation. Not about the execution of the existing job, but having the conversation of where do you what are your passions? Where do you want to be? And then it's up to the leader to help fulfill those passions.
Right.
And help from a standpoint of maybe integrating some development opportunity that will help that individual move into the position that they want in the future.
Right. And it is about having those conversations, and it can be scary, especially if you think, well, I might lose my job. I remember several years ago, I was working with a woman who I was working with her on her LinkedIn profile because she wanted a different job. She just wasn't challenged, all of those various reasons as to why you want to change jobs. And she actually put in her LinkedIn profile that she was looking for different employment. Now, of course, that's always risky because you never know who's going to see it, right?
Exactly.
And her boss saw it, calls her in, and she's thinking, okay, the decision just got made, right?
Right.
And he looked at her and he said, so tell me more about this. And they had a good enough relationship that she felt comfortable saying, I love this company, but here's what I really want to be doing. And bless him, he looked at her and he said, is there a reason you don't want to do it here? And he helped her get a better position in that company. Which, that was, and so, she kept her benefits, she kept her salary, all of those things. And she stayed with a company that she loved. Now that was, that 9 times out of 10, that conversation is going to go south. But the problem is it shouldn't. And that's really what you're helping people to do is to be able to have those conversations and keep those great employees, even if it means they're not going to be working for you.
Yes. Yeah. Your story brings up a story that years ago when I first started as a Vistage Chair, I had a member who had a small manufacturing company. And we had a speaker come in and talk about, careers and career conversations. And he went back and had a conversation with one of his employees. And he knew that this employee liked to do stand-up comedy on weekends. So he had this conversation about, what do you, and he's like, well, I really eventually want to get to California to be able to do this. He's like, okay, well then how can I help you? He wasn't going to be able to provide him with those opportunities in a manufacturing company. But he had a network that he could help direct this gentleman. And like, I think it was 18 months later, he headed for California for his dream. Yeah.
And to me, karma is going to be, is going to be in there. And, whether you believe in karma or not, but, so he helped that person to get his career. Hopefully what happened then was he got another great employee to take his place. And that would have been good karma, was for him to have gotten a great replacement.
Yeah, exactly. So, getting the right people in the right seats at the right time. That is really what leaders' goals should be.
Right.
Because if you do that, then you're going to be highly successful and you're going to have engaged employees. Yeah.
And it's funny, I was thinking it really doesn't matter if you're hiring the type of employee that is short term, so maybe it's a fast food or a seasonal or whatever, or something that somebody, is going to be there for several years or multiple years. I mean, many people don't have careers at one company any longer. But, if you've, we're both here in Atlanta, land of Chick-fil-A.
That's right.
Where they treat their employees like there's somebody who's going to be with them for many, many years.
Yes.
But they also are giving them training to go out into the world. And it's really funny because I've noticed you can tell when somebody is I'm putting this in my air quotes for, my listeners, a Chick-fil-A trained person.
Yes.
Because, I always love it when they say it's my pleasure. Oh, okay. You learned that at Chick-fil-A, right?
Right.
But they also, they've got great scholarship programs, and they know, if somebody is going off and getting a college degree, more than likely they're not going to stay a Chick-fil-A employee. But that's just kind of their philosophy is to do that. And so what happens is they get better people who even apply.
That's right. It's they have what I call a great employer brand.
Mm-hmm.
They are able, because of their philosophy, they are able to attract
Mm-hmm.
great people.
Right.
And there are a lot of companies out there that do a really good job
Mm-hmm.
on branding themselves
Right.
as an employer. That's
Mm-hmm.
why a lot of companies will, go for the best places to work,
Mm-hmm.
because gosh, all of a sudden you've got lots and lots of people
Mm-hmm.
who are lining up to work for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and it is about having that brand and owning it. I mean, Chick-fil-A, Hobby Lobby, of the other businesses like that, make it very well known about that they are kind of a faith-based, I mean, Hobby Lobby in particular, faith-based organization.
Yeah.
If that's not what you're looking for, then you don't apply.
Exactly.
And so they're not trying to be everything to everybody, and that's where it comes back to the great leaders. They have to know, what is that brand? What do they want going out there?
And it gets back to interviewing.
Mm-hmm.
That if you're really clear about your brand,
Mm-hmm.
and the story, the company story, that's one of
Mm-hmm.
the things that I'll work with clients on is,
Right.
what's your company story?
Mm-hmm.
Because you have to sell applicants.
Mm-hmm.
It's not 20 years ago.
Right.
It's today.
Mm-hmm.
And people want to understand what you represent.
Mm-hmm.
What's your culture?
Mm-hmm.
What do you stand for?
Right. Millennials especially want to know that. And this is not a bad thing, people.
No, not at all. And then once we get the company story
Mm-hmm.
set, then I work with each leader to get their story around the company.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened to them
Right.
since they have joined?
Mm-hmm.
So that because people love stories.
Mm-hmm.
So you can share that with the applicant. Not only here's the company story, but here's my personal story,
Mm-hmm.
and what working for the company has meant to me.
Mm-hmm. Right.
So it's
and it is about having that story and having everyone understand it and believe it. It's not just the sign on the wall or on your truck or whatever. It's funny, as you were saying that, I was thinking one of my little hot buttons are the companies that are pink. And I am a breast cancer survivor, so that's why that's a hot button for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so I will ask them. And so we went into one of the auto dealers that has, the pink plates and all of those things, and, negotiating to buy a car. And so I asked the guy, how much money does your company give to breast cancer research? We do. Okay. All your marketing materials say that. And you have pink license plates and this, that, and so on. We do. Now he knew they had, he was thinking they thought pink because they like to think pink. Oh, look, all of a sudden I got new color in my screen. Up there it went. My camera's acting up today. I had color in my cheeks and then I didn't have color in my cheeks. How funny. But yeah, they did not know the company story. And so that was very bad, because since that is a hot button for me, it's, the fact that they couldn't tell me how much money went to fund breast cancer research, or did it go to breast cancer research? Did it go to patient program? Anything. I mean, they couldn't tell me anything about their very well-known, very marketed part of their brand. And we still bought from them, but it was like, no.
That gets to the whole process of onboarding employees, and how important it is to have a process that not only lets the employee know, what they need to do, but things like company values.
Right.
What are the behaviors that we expect support those company values? What are our social responsibilities and community responsibilities? All of those things, if you don't have a good onboarding program, get missed. And I would suggest that that's what happened with that.
Right. And it really would have taken a piece of paper, and that said, we give 10%. We do, in October, we do yada, 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 and all of those things. And then I would have been happy. But, if you're going to brand yourself as affiliating with something like that, maybe it's a children's hospital, whatever it is, then it has to flow through
to the ground troops. Exactly.
Right.
Yeah. And I would say that it needs that from an onboarding perspective, it's more than just having a sheet of paper.
It's explaining it.
I would explaining it. I would do videos. There's so there are Zappos. They have a great onboarding program.
Right.
And a lot of it is video related. I had one client who had a new employee starting, and she had to be out of town. So she actually did a video and sent it to the woman that very first day, saying, "Hey, I'm so sorry I can't be there. I'll be there tomorrow. Here are some of the things that I would be telling you today." So it's caring for the employees.
Right. And employees, that is part of what they want, for their culture. They want to know, are you a philanthropic minded organization? And if you're not, okay, own that too. Because there are companies that aren't, and they say, what you're going to do on your private time, that's great, but we're not going to do that. And that's perfectly fine, as long as that's what they're putting out there. And it's one of those days, right? When I worked for ING, which is now Voya, the large financial company, I managed their philanthropic program for our Denver location. And that was extremely important to our employees. We did surveys. Where do you want us to spend our money? Now, back then, we were able to determine that. I mean, our employees were. They changed that and said, hey, eventually it should be financial education, which kind of made sense. Yeah. But when I was there, it was, what did the employees want? And it changed. I mean, every year we changed. And so there were times where we focused on children's health. There were times, and usually we always had quite a big pool of money. So we were able to fund various things, and we had committees. Our big thing was we wanted our employees to submit suggestions as to where we could fund and who we should fund. And so it was really important to us that we got the employees involved, and it was very important to them that even if they didn't participate, that they knew what was going on. And I think that is very important in a lot of cases, that employees want that, and they want that kind of culture.
Right.
And of course now the problem is that we may be losing that because of what's going on with coronavirus, with the pandemic, with all of those things. We obviously have no idea what things are going to be like in a month, let alone 6 months to a year. I figure a year is about where we'll know really kind of where things have settled down to. But, right now, most employees, especially of large corporations, might be home officing. and we've all of a sudden lost all that connectivity. So how are leaders, and we lost it suddenly. It was fine one day and the next day. There was zero preparation for it. So how are leaders having to really adapt to this?
Well, early on in the process, all the leaders that I've spoken to went to like daily meetings,
right?
Daily Zoom meetings. Some of them would actually do 2 meetings a day. I have one client who does PEO and payrolling. Well, that with the PPP, they were having to make massive changes to their systems, their IT systems, in order to assist their clients. So they were meeting all the time. Well, it's now gotten to the point where people have gotten used to it, and there's a rhythm. One client I spoke with, they do 3 meetings a week, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Monday is working on the business. Okay. Wednesday's working in the business. And Friday is recognition and rewards and celebration. So it's a great weekly schedule of communicating. There are others who have, for instance, when they're using Slack, if they're using Slack or something like Slack, they've created different streams and groups based on interests. So, for instance, stay-at-home moms. What are they having to deal with? Or
who all of a sudden are teachers in addition to employees.
Exactly. Or people like myself who have an elderly parent living with them. That's another different dynamic. So it's a way of sharing amongst special interest groups.
Right.
In day and age.
Well, because normally they'd be meeting in, say, where the coffee room is.
Exactly. Yeah. And so communications, but very much a focus on transparency. That the leaders probably don't know much more than the employees.
Right.
Employees, if they're really active, are probably getting out on the CDC website and reading all the new information.
But that changes like every hour.
Right. And hopefully they're not using Facebook as
I know, right?
But transparency is really important, and being vulnerable. The leaders who have a high level of emotional intelligence have the ability to be more vulnerable and share with employees, especially now that we're headed back into the workplace. There's a lot of fear. Right. So leaders need to be transparent about, okay, this is what we have done so far. We are still learning. And we want to learn not only from the government and public officials, but we also want to learn from you as to what's working and what's not working. And by the way, we don't know if there's going to be an uptick in our area.
I know we could just bring everybody back, and whoops, everybody got to go home again.
But here's what we plan on doing if that should happen. And so get really, really clear with individuals and employees as to what's going to happen if for some reason we get another wave of COVID.
Right. Yeah, it is, as I said, this was thrust on us.
Right.
But now we know, okay, these things can happen. So we should plan for them. And it's funny because after September 11th, many companies made plans, but those were short term, right? Our company, we shut down for like half a day. Some companies shut down for a little bit longer, but none shut down, very long,
right,
unless they were very, very directly affected by something that happened. But yeah, the vast majority of companies by that next Monday were back up and running and functioning. But we did have to make plans then. Okay, we couldn't fly, couldn't do this, couldn't do that, all sorts of things. And so now we need to plan on, okay, what if there is a second wave? What if there's a third wave?
Right.
You know, and of course, then we make it really tricky, and we toss in the fact that every state is doing this differently.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and so, you know, and
you have multiple offices.
Right. You know, and let's be honest, here in Georgia, they have been kind of leading in, you know, opening things back up, which, knock on wood, has so far been okay. You know, for all the naysayers, we did okay. But, you know, it's one of those things where, as you said, nobody knows, you know, if and when they're able to go back into offices, is there going to be, you know, for the cubicle world, all of a sudden, are they going to have plexiglass all over everywhere? Are they going to be putting up walls? You know, are you going to have to rearrange because you were 4 feet from the person next to you? You know, your in-person meetings, all of a sudden, you know, all these various things. You know, we're also hearing that some companies are saying, okay, this group will be in the office for this week, then this group will be in the office for this week, and so we're going to alternate. Or we're not going to work on Wednesdays so that they can go in and clean good on Wednesdays. Now, obviously, a lot of this depends on cases. You know, if we continue to go down in diagnosis, well, then they're not going to be quite so concerned. And some of this is just good, good sense. You know, hello, we should have been cleaning, we should have been washing our hands, all those various things.
Right.
But what I am foreseeing, and this is, you know, obviously purely anecdotal because there's nothing that really, you know, is that I think a lot of companies are going to go, you know what, working from home worked. And we're going to continue it. You know, is that something, because you're talking with some of these leaders, is that what you're seeing?
So that's interesting because I've heard anecdotally the same scenario, but the companies that I'm working with, they want their people back. Now, granted, like one of them owns the building, so they're not renting. I mean, I can see where there will be companies, and it might not be immediately, but it will have to do with leases.
Right. Yeah. Do we really need all of this space?
Exactly. Or can we cut back and save 50% and do some of those rotations? I mean, there are a lot of employees that don't, you know, especially the introverts.
They think this is the greatest thing in the world.
Things in sliced bread. Yeah, just leave me here. I'm saving, you know, an hour, 2 hours commute. I've got extra time.
I know. Everybody's got like an extra 2 hours in their day because they're not commuting.
Exactly. Yeah. And less stressful too. I mean, getting in the car and sitting in traffic, that you arrive at work and you're stressed, and then you get home and you're stressed. Yeah.
Right.
So, I see that happening. And especially now with the challenges around the protests and the riots that we've seen, that, you know, these inner cities, I hear a lot of people saying, well, gee, you know what? Living in a high rise, first of all, during COVID wasn't fun because we couldn't go anywhere. It was like white collar prison. And then now with the unrest, do I really want to live in town? How about looking at a suburb? So I definitely see, I would not want to be a commercial real estate.
It's either going to be really good for them or not so much.
Right, exactly.
It was funny. I was talking with someone who does office share type of things, and they're seeing that that's going to go up because, you know, you're going to be having people who aren't in a physical office as much, but they need to be on occasion.
Right.
So they're going to rent those spaces. You know, and they also see, you know, exactly what you were saying, that these companies, even if they own the space, where they're gonna lease out a floor for something different, or, you know, all those various things. And, you know, this all comes back to exactly what we were saying. It's all about communication. You know, people are wondering, am I ever going back into the office? Yay! Or, oh my God, I'm never going back into the office. You know, and before the program, we were talking about, were people, and in many cases, they weren't prepared to work from home. Did they have the right equipment? Were you in an office that did not have laptops to give to employees to be able to work from home?
Exactly. Yeah, no, I had a number of companies that went through that. I had one though that had moved virtually about 18 months ago and is in one of those shared office spaces. So they didn't miss a tick.
Right.
I mean, they just, it's like, okay, we're just not going to go to that office. And they kept on rolling. Now, of course, they're in the insurance industry. They don't need to be face to face with people. A lot of their work is done, on a desktop. So it really depends on what you do and how collaborative do you need to be.
Right. And leaders need to sit down and think, okay, if our employees are potentially going to be working from home, even if it's just one day a week or, whatever it comes down to, what do we need to provide for them? And what do we have to provide for them?
Yeah.
Do they have to give them Wi-Fi? Do they have to give them a laptop, a desk chair? All these various things. My husband works normally in a very large office. They're shut down. He's home. Now he had a laptop, and and so that was not a huge deal. But he figured out really quickly he needed. What he missed was his monitor, and and because it was just a bigger monitor, all those various things, and a keyboard. So they made arrangements to be able to get that. But what if you can't do that? We were talking before the program about a friend who didn't have an office chair. How many people are like that? Their home office is now a kitchen table, a dining room table. That is one of the most uncomfortable chairs to sit in for more than an hour at a time. So are you providing those for your employees, or giving them, at least say an Office Depot gift card or something so that they can go do that?
Yeah, no, those are all things that they had to figure out pretty early on. And you're right, there were, depending on the company and the company culture, they would be very gracious and provide a lot of stuff, and there are others that not so much. And it kind of gets back to company culture. Yeah, exactly.
And speaking of that company culture, I mean, a big part of the employee situation is being in that office and being with the people.
Right.
Whether you're talking about what you watched on TV last night, there might be sports on again at some point, going and doing, say, Habitat for Humanity on a weekend or whatever. So if we end up with more people working from home, how are we going to deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that just means continuing with Zoom meetings. I think one of the things that has come out of this is pre-COVID, leaders, if they were in a dispersed environment, would have conference calls. They would not do video for some reason, at least the ones that I worked with.
Right.
And I always question them and challenge them on that, because it's like, you're missing so much of the communication if you cannot see the people. And you know that half the people on the conference call are doing something else.
Oh yeah.
While the other people are talking. So
you can even hear the tickety 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 tickety.
So you need, I think that Zoom and other platforms like Zoom are going to really benefit in the long term. That this isn't the volume of Zoom calls isn't going to all of a sudden drop when people start going back to work. It's really important that those individuals that are the introverts who really don't feel the need to come back to work, that leaders understand their employees' personality styles, and communicate appropriately with them. One of the things that I've heard is, there's, especially early on, there was a lot of stress by employees moving back into the house, dealing with homeschooling and and other personal issues that that going to work they could escape from.
Right.
But that leaders really needed to think about the employee first. That when Zoom meetings started, it wasn't, okay, guys, here's the agenda, like pre-COVID.
Right.
It was, okay, Deb, tell me, how are things going? You know, what can I do to help you as you make this transition?
Right.
Leaders, I hope, will continue to do that. Meaning, think about the employee first, and then talk about execution and results.
Right.
What has happened, and I heard this through a survey by DDI, employee engagement has increased. Think about it. We're all virtual, but we are more engaged. And why is that? It's not that we're able to sit at home. It's because our leaders are paying more attention to us. Yeah.
I like that.
It's and I am very hopeful that as we re-enter, leaders will continue to start meetings, even if we're in the same room, about the individual first.
Right. You know, and it's interesting because I think a lot of leaders and actually managers, because I think of a leader as a very positive person.
Yes.
You know, and so sometimes it's the manager, it's but whoever, they don't want to know what goes on in their employees' personal life for a variety of reasons. They think it doesn't matter. They think there's HR issues, all sorts of things. Well, all of a sudden, they're seeing that. They are seeing it.
Yes.
Quite literally, because it's behind somebody in their Zoom screen. They're seeing the little kid go wandering by. They're seeing the dog, the cat. Even if they're just seeing pictures on the wall. It's funny. I have stuff and I had people who said, oh my gosh, that is so distracting. You have got to change that. And so I just, I have a backdrop now. But, and then of course, we have all the people who are doing Zoom backdrops, which are just hilarious and professional and all sorts of different things. But, now we're able to get maybe it's just a little glimpse into somebody's personal life, whether you wanted it or not. Right. I was talking with somebody the other day who she had been on a conference call, Zoom call frequently. And her home office was her bedroom. And she said she finally figured maybe something needed to change when several people commented several times about her bedspread. Now her bed was made, it was not, it was nice, it was neat, it was, all these various things, but she thought, that probably is just not professional. So she got a screen that she put up, and things like that. But yeah, what are people seeing? One of my favorite stories, and this was like last week, was the elementary school child who was on a Zoom classroom. So all of her little classmates were there, and mom went wandering behind the child, stark naked.
Oh no.
And oh yes. And of course, all the little kids went, yeah. And so she stopped because she's like, what's wrong?
Oh no.
And then, and then of course, and so, but, and we've heard stories. Yeah. It was like, oh dear. And so people really got to see more of her than they ever wanted. But yeah, we are getting glimpses into people's personal lives that we never had before. And, to me, a good leader is exactly as you said, they're going to take that and learn from it. Right. Maybe they didn't even know that somebody had 3 kids, all sorts of things. And so now they're thinking, okay, we need to now be cognizant of the fact that I might need this person to come back into the office, but their kids aren't going back into the classroom. So how are we going to deal with that?
Exactly. Yeah. No, I think that, leaders have learned a lot during this period of time. And
we've learned about leaders too.
Yeah. And the good ones are in the process of going, kind of reflecting back saying, okay, what did I do right?
Mm-hmm.
What did I do wrong? Um, what do I need to take with me forward?
Mm-hmm.
What do I need to do more of? And what do we need to just stop doing?
Mm.
And
Mm-hmm.
that could be,
Mm-hmm.
going into an office or
Right.
right.
Mm-hmm.
It's those leaders are strategic and looking forward, even though they know they don't know everything,
Mm-hmm.
and that things will change.
Right.
But as a leader, what can I personally do differently?
Mm-hmm.
What do I have control and
Mm-hmm.
influence over?
Right.
Yeah.
And I've talked about that with other guests about knowing about your employees. How do they want to be communicated with? Are they text people? Are they email people? Are they going to work better, at 10 o'clock at night? Well, if they're getting the work done and it works for them to be working at 10 o'clock at night,
Right.
then maybe that's what you want to do, but then you have to set very, and it really comes back to, again, the communication. You have to set very clear, I hate to say it, but ground rules. Okay, you can get this done anytime during the week, but it has to be done.
There is a specific
Mm-hmm.
time that things are
Right.
complete.
Yeah.
But
Or maybe it's that you will be, you might want to work nights, but you will be part of that team Zoom meeting at 9 o'clock every morning, whatever. Mm-hmm.
That's where I was
Mm-hmm.
headed. That there was a client I was talking to just recently, and they do a lot of marketing,
Mm-hmm.
and so they've got a lot of creatives,
Mm-hmm.
and one of them likes to work through the night,
Mm-hmm.
and he's unavailable when somebody wants to contact him
Right.
during
Mm-hmm.
the mornings,
because he's asleep.
Right, he's asleep. Mm-hmm. Right. So, set some ground rules of maybe some core hours that everybody has to be available,
right,
to communicate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I think some companies are going to find that, what they thought was an 8-hour day, when given the flexibility, might be 4. I mean, or 6 or 10. I mean, who knows? But, and I think it's going to be fun to watch and to see how these companies adapt, because they were starting to. There were a lot of companies who were saying, okay, you can work from home every Friday, or, all of these various things, and you can have the flex schedules, all, whatever it was. But now they're going to be forced to do it. And so even the companies that were doing it before are having to tweak things, because like we were saying, all of a sudden there's kids at home, there's a spouse at home, and did they have the right equipment? Do they have the right bandwidth? I mean, I was talking with somebody the other day, and they said, well, we can't do that because we actually, she said, I can't Zoom with you. Oh, okay. I mean, I was whatever. And she said, you need to understand there are now 6 people in this house on our Wi-Fi, and 4 of them are students that have to be on. I went, oh.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I've heard issues like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And that might not be able to change. I mean, your company could have or it might be that if it's absolutely critical, well, then they have a dedicated Wi-Fi, or, something like that. But that comes back to communication. I mean, the employee has to say, oh my gosh, Beth, I got to tell you, I really need a chair and my Wi-Fi sucks.
And that kind of gets back to that if the leader has created a strong relationship with employees, they will feel comfortable coming to him or her and requesting that. If the leader has not created that baseline of a relationship, they're not going to feel comfortable.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because the employee doesn't want judged. How many people want to say, I don't have a chair?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, there's a whole bunch of reasons as to why somebody might not have a chair. And, only a couple of those could be financial, might just not fit with your decor, all these various things. But yeah, you have to feel like you can say, Beth, I need a chair. without you going, and that is kind of one of the problems with Zoom is we can see the eye rolls. We can see.
Oh, yes. I've noticed it also on the news
Mm-hmm.
when they have like some sort of round table.
Right.
People talking,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody will say something and then you can see the eye roll.
Mm-hmm.
It's like when they were all together.
Because before the camera wouldn't have been on them.
I was like, oh my gosh. There's definitely some that can have that straight face.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Others that are like have the facial expressions that
you'd love to play poker with them, right?
Exactly.
Right. Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, Beth, we didn't even talk about the fact that we're almost at the top of the hour. We didn't even talk about, we've got such huge unemployment. How are people going to fill these spaces? All these various things. We didn't even get near that. So this just means that we need to talk with you again, because there's so many options out there now. I mean, there's a lot of good talent that is now available.
Oh, yeah.
All sorts of things. And I think a lot of companies are really going to be restructuring. They're going to say, you know what, we had 20 people working before. We really need 25, or, we only need 10, all sorts of things like that. And so, we didn't even get near that. So it'll be fun to have you back on again, maybe once things are starting to settle a bit, so that we know a little bit more about what's going on. But before then, tell us what Executive Velocity does.
So we are a talent management advisory company, and we help small to mid-sized companies, generally 30 employees to 500 employees, strategically with their talent.
Okay.
That includes developing leaders through coaching and training, new manager training, succession planning, both from the top all the way down, so that you always have the right people, the right place at the right time.
Great. One of the things you talk about in your book is it really helps to have a third party, unbiased person come in and do some of these things, because employees aren't going to sit in front of their manager and say, she's not a good manager, or he's horrible, but they'll tell the consultant, and so that's where that comes in. So speaking of your book, show it again. It's called Are You Talent Obsessed? Quick read. And again, it's, as I was reading it, I was thinking, this is great for volunteers too. If anything, it's really good for volunteers, for people who are in charge, who've never been in charge before, whether it's a volunteer, whether it's a manager, paid position, things like that. But before we, have the opportunity to talk with you again, tell people how they find you and connect with you online.
Yeah. So I'm on LinkedIn. And I am the only Beth Arm Connect Miller. So,
I know. I was really glad I didn't have to say Arm Connect.
Arm Connect, like arm connected to your shoulder, but it is spelled ARMKNECHT. So if you put that in, you will find me on LinkedIn. You can also go to my website, which is executive-velocity.com. And the final thing I'd like to share with people is, during these challenging times, I'm offering a 30-minute free coaching session.
Great.
With business owners. So they can email me at beth.miller@executive-velocity.com, and we can schedule some time.
Perfect. I love it. And if you're listening to this or watching this several years down the road, that might not still be valid, but it's always good to connect with Beth and ask, what can happen. Her website is great. Lots of good resources. Again, you've got the book. So are there any final thoughts you want to leave everyone with?
I just want leaders, business owners to believe in themselves, take care of themselves first before they try and take care of their employees. I see a lot of leaders right now that are just run down from an energy standpoint. It's the old adage of put your oxygen mask on first before you put other people's oxygen.
Perfect. I love it. We didn't even discuss that. This is for a leader who is trying to figure all of this out. Holy schmoly. So do what you need to be doing, meditate, get a coach, talk to people. It's a little tricky if you're somewhere where you can't go back to church, but you can certainly call and be talking with people, all these various things. So, as Beth said, take care of yourself first, and, and make sure that you're doing that as the leader of your family. Be taking care of yourself first. Well, this has been absolutely wonderful, Beth. I knew that we could just chat forever, and so I look forward to having you on again. I'm Deb Creer. I've been having a great time talking with Beth Miller, and until next time, everyone have a great day.
Tune in for our next program for even more trends, best practices, and techniques for how to make your business a success. The Business Power Hour, hosted by Deb Creer, is proud to be part of the C-Suite Network.